we talk about the Magi story and the birth of Jesus, they're also talking about the stars and the signs and the wonders in the sky.
because I find it really interesting when you actually look at stage magicians today. You still kind of see that same thing, where that playing of the veil. How we're just saying, oh, because I can understand, or so and so understands, but the general doesn't understand, and correlations with the underworld, right, with Hebrew culture and Babylonian culture and Persian, because once the dualism then starts coming in, it's the good versus the bad, right? And it's that
Oh, yeah, that's a
eternal
good point.
power struggle, right?
Right. Even today in universities, right, a part of education, a part of adult education is spiritual knowing, right? The spiritual knowing, this rote memory, right? There's other ways of knowing. But spiritual knowing, and that goes back to what you're saying, things that are passed down, right, through wisdom, through various cultures.
If somebody in today's says, "Oh, I practice magic," you might have, "Oh, you on Ouija boards, you doing stuff like
Yeah,
that," where they could be the furthest thing from that, and you're just automatically listing them off as that, when
yeah,
really it's such a broad term or label
yeah.
uh, that could mean a lot of things.
The Persian, coming from the Zoroastrianism perspective of Magi, wise kings, um, were different or against what the Babylonian terminology at the time had dwarfed into of
Hmm.
Magi, which was basically like imposters, right?
Hmm. So,
Yes.
are they kings? Are they wise men? Are they magicians?
It was the journey. It was not the destination. You was in a hurry to get there, to come up, to be this, to be that. It's the journey, not the destination. Because the destination is steadily evolving. We always growing in wisdom and knowledge and understanding.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Parables and Proverbs. This is our second episode. I'm here with Yorab Sion, and I'm your host, Selah Kante. We had a great and fruitful conversation last time talking about spiritual currency and
Yes.
the different ways, that we use different currencies and tension. We were talking about love. We were talking about unity, but like we said, this episode or this show really is more so for a lot of these spiritual topics and not just the well, last episode we're kind of really focusing on Christian Christian well, not we're touching on a lot of
Yeah.
Christian ideas and stuff. But today
Yeah.
we'll be looking at the Zoroastrian Magi. And again, that has to do with some Christian tradition as well. And Jesus's birth story and the wise men in most translations, but also in other translation are the Magi. And
Right.
we're going to be looking at the tradition of magic today.
Yeah. And also, I would like to add, if I may,
Yeah.
that when we talk about the Magi story and the birth of Jesus, they're also talking about the stars and the signs and the wonders in the sky. I also say that because oftentimes Christians are one who kind of look down on others who talk about the stars and the signs in the sky. Just
Hmm.
to show you that sometimes that can be a misnomer, right? And
Hmm.
that's part of why we're doing what we're doing is to bring and talk about some of those perspectives,
Hmm.
and bring
Absolutely.
some of those things into the foresight and the light and
Absolutely.
something it up.
And I say that all the time where, in my opinion, I see it all the time where God's using different religions or the other way that people operate in the spirit to point to himself. It might not be the way that Jewish thinking or tradition, but you'll see especially like today, with the Magi, how he'll even incorporate other things into spirituality that other people use, and
Right.
it's
And if
it's there.
someone, yeah, and just coming from the biblical perspective, if someone really knows the Bible, then you would look at Job and see it's the oldest book in the Bible, which was older than Jewish tradition. It's a story
Hmm.
that harkens back unto Zoroastrianism. but
Mhm,
yet pointing to God, telling the story of God, right? Excuse me.
mhm,
And moreover, it deals with a common subject, which is suffering, right? The
mhm.
problem with evil. It basically gets down to that. But I know that's a little bit of a sidebar. That's not what we're talking about tonight. But I just want to, agree with you in the history and understanding where these sources are coming from.
Right,
The
and not
idea that
just,
sources,
Job, but, as well as, Daniel in the book of Daniel, uh, with Nebuchadnezzar and all the, Magi, wise men that were there,
right?
he
Yes.
put Daniel in charge of them, right?
And the
So,
studying of numbers and all that. We'll get to that one on another
yeah, that's a
podcast,
whole
all
nother
right?
episode.
Yeah,
But so let's look at the word magi, right? You know how we were saying magic, right? And
right,
so the tradition of magic, most of them attribute to Zoroastrianism being the foundation of these magic traditions. And the
right,
magi were specifically a priest class within Zoroastrianism. Um and kind of gets broader later with the reign of the Babylonian Empire and everything, and then
right,
kind of turns more into Babylonian Magi. But first, we're going to be
right,
looking at the Persian Magi with the
right,
Zoroastrian, with the
right.
because it coming out of Persia, right?
Yes. But before we go on to that, we'll stop a second into, as you were saying about magic. I want to operationally define magic into
Hmm.
what people think it is, and then into other realms. For example, sacred geometry, right?
Hmm.
And because everything is math, everything is numbers, right? Even if
Hmm.
you see something, you may not know what it is, how it got to be there, but there is a formula or a solution behind it, right?
Hmm.
Magic is nothing more than unknown mathematics. I want to say that first and foremost.
And I can't remember the quote specifically off my head, but it was something along the lines the same thing of magic is just just that of the things that are unknown or unlearned that we haven't studied yet, right?
Right,
And
unseen. Yes, that's why I call it
and
sleight of
again,
hand and all that.
as you break it down, as you're saying, even when you're looking into that again, like you're saying, that's the general perception of when we hear magic, right? But again,
Right,
just like the same thing we were talking about last episode, instead of having your own perception of it, right, going to the source of the people instead of just giving your own interpretation, right? So when we go to the sources of the people who practice these quote unquote magic traditions, right? They
yeah,
simply say it's manifesting your will, right?
uh-huh,
Whether it be spiritually or physically. And but a lot of times it's more so bringing the spirit into the physical, right?
right,
And that
yeah,
crossing of the veil is typically what I describe as. And I'd
right,
like to really have that on another episode too, because I find it really interesting when you actually look at like stage magicians today. You still kind of see that same thing, where
yeah,
that playing of the veil, how we're just saying, oh, because I can understand or so and so understands, but the general doesn't understand, and what's happening behind the curtain, right? The veil, right?
right, right,
So,
exactly, yep. Alright, well, take us back there to, Zoroastrianism. How was they doing it?
right. So, like we were saying, coming out of Persia and everything, right? And Zoroastrianism, uh, like we are saying, in the magic traditions, a lot of times it's the focus on the wisdom, right?
Right,
And so I'm pretty sure what it's called in Zoroastrianism is like the asna. And I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that might have it how it's pronounced. But again, that's what the fire resembles, right? It's the wisdom, eternal wisdom, right?
right,
That everybody can tap into. And just how we're saying with the other traditions, quote unquote magic traditions, like Gnosticism or Greek Sophia, right? Philosophy, philosophia, is the love of
right,
wisdom, right?
right,
So,
yes,
as we are just saying, right? You see that how the foundation right there, and slowly leads on into the future.
right. And I see how a lot of spiritual traditions, the teaching of others are all in search of wisdom,
Mhm.
you know. Uh and so form different approaches how to get there. And then now, as you say, well, you also speak of that, and then later with other groups, right? That seeking that I don't know how to say it 'cause that sounds wrong, but I would say seeking that wisdom formula. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that in a bad sense, right? The
Mhm.
wisdom formula to be higher uh understanding of the universe. And we'll get into that more when we talk about the three wise men.
Yeah.
I'll come
And
back
I
to that and tell you what I mean. That's a perfect example.
and I think kind of what you're more so pointing towards is again the same thing when we talk about like Native American traditions, the wisdom that's
Mhm.
passed down right to from the
Right.
planting and the how to hunt and that wisdom, not that it's
Yes.
formulaic, but
Right.
the again since the people who have been here have
Mhm.
a lot of the things we talk about today have already been talked about
Mm.
thousands of times. So
Oh,
for us
yeah.
not to look at those conversations,
Right. Even today in universities, right, a part of education and a part of adult
Mhm,
education is spiritual knowing,
mhm,
right? The spiritual knowing, this rote memory, right? There's other ways of knowing, but spiritual knowing, and that goes back to what you're saying, things that are passed down, right, through wisdom, through various cultures. And if you
mhm,
think back, I don't know if you remember the tidal wave that came through that resort sometime. I don't know if it wasn't in Thailand, was it? But it was somewhere like that, right? And
mhm,
then the water had swelled back, and then it came back in, but all the tourists and nobody was paying attention, right?
mhm.
But the natives knew all the birds had flew out of the area,
Yep,
right? They was fleeing. All the people who were native to the land were going up to high ground,
yep,
right? And nobody knew, nobody said because they didn't understand it. It came crashing back down and killed a couple of hundred people.
mhm.
And
And
that's a
again,
perfect example.
simply going to back kind of what we were just saying with the, more so Native American traditions that are passed down. Again, what are they looking at? Some of the signs are the
Right.
birds fleeing, they'd be like, you don't see the
Exactly.
animals going away, be
Right.
like, look at
Yeah.
nature. And say
Oh
it's all
yeah.
around you. Everybody's telling you. They said you're
Oh
just not
yeah.
listening,
Oh
right?
yeah. Even now, like down south, right? Being originally from Tennessee, you
Mm-hmm.
drive in and you see all the cows standing up, you know it's about to rain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But no, so there's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be some kind somewhere rest or something. When they know it's about to rain, they all stand up so they don't get wet in the rain like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you're saying, we see it all around us, no matter where you're at in the world. But going back to bringing us back to the Magi here, um, a lot of more so, the first quote unquote demonization of the Magi first starts with the Greek, okay, and
Mhm.
to them they didn't say Magi, but it was Magos, okay, and
Mm.
Magos is where we get the word Magus, right, and so like
Oh,
Simon the Magus, right, he
right.
was a quote unquote magician. Um, but again, just showing afterwards that little bit where you see it start to splinter off, right? Where we
Mhm.
kind of mislabel quote unquote. But
Yes.
Magoi being the singular and magos being the plural form, right?
Mhm.
And then same thing how we were just saying magus, and then that's how you get magi, right?
Right.
And we made touch of it earlier how we were just saying how they were in the Babylonian castle and they would help the king with astrology, with dream
Dream
interpretations.
interpretation, yeah.
Yep,
Daniel.
yep.
Yeah, God out with the dream. We can go back to Joseph, to dreaming. Yeah, but I done talk now. When we say magi, is that plural or singular?
Magi.
Yes.
Magi is singular. I mean, sorry,
Singular,
plural. Plural.
plural. Right.
Yeah, sorry.
So, I mean, it might be both single and plural. Is really why I'm asking because I'm like, what is a single? Because
Oh, I think I
the
said
word
it
magician
backwards.
hasn't came yet.
Magoi. I think I said it earlier. what might be messing. Magoi is plural. Magos is singular.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so magos
Magi,
one. Yeah.
okay, then Magi, plural, right?
Yeah.
Plural more, something, right? Okay. So then now, when it comes down there, and it says in the Bible, it says they was watching the stars, right? And the
Mhm.
Bible says three wise men, right? Then some people say the Magi, right?
Mhm.
Like to do a little thing, but you kind of miss it, right? Because I say it now, because we're going back to the magic thing and how the churches against magic, but here these three magi, it's plural for magician, our current word magician, right?
Mhm.
But yet they were the wise men.
Mhm.
Make it make sense, right?
And some translations even say kings, the
Right.
three kings. So
Yes.
are they kings? Are they wise men? Are they magicians?
I
Let's
think
break it
they're
down
all
a
the
little bit.
above. No, I think they're
Exactly.
kings of wisdom,
No,
and
they
which is why
exactly
they knew
are.
how to read the stars, see the signs, and follow them to their destined location.
Yep.
Right? And now I give you one more, because where did it say they're from?
Which ones?
The Magi. I'm talking about. It said the three Magi.
Oh,
It
in the
said,
Bible?
yeah, it just
Yeah,
says
in
who
the
came
Bible it
from
just
the
says from the east. Yeah.
east. Yeah, from the
Yeah.
east. Okay, what did that really mean, though? East could be anywhere. They also, another word for the east, rising of the sun.
Mhm.
Right? 'Cause the sun always rises to the east. And so now there's alluded to not necessarily that, but rising from the sun with their understanding, right? Their spiritual essence. And
Mhm.
from the east, and that way, east and in the presence of the God, and from their learning and discerning, right? Which
Mhm.
they are now able to discern and come bearing gifts, right?
Mhm.
But again, we're going back to astrology, cosmology,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
With wisdom, associated with wisdom. And then, like, don't forget that. I want to keep putting that in there. Right
Absolutely.
now, as with everything, where there is wisdom, there will always be some foolishness hanging around,
Mhm.
trying to perpetrate as wisdom. That comes with the territory, and that's where a lot of confusion come in. It wouldn't
And
be
that
as
act
much. Go ahead.
and I was just gonna say that's exactly what happens once the Babylonian Empire starts coming in and taking over and the bad apples start coming in, right?
Right.
That's when a lot of the separation starts happening. And you can even see it in the historical context where the Babylonian quote unquote magi had more of a trickery connotation to it than
Oh
the
yeah.
Persian magi.
Right.
So going back to what you were saying, and then
Yeah.
like the same thing with of it being all of the above, thinking back to a lot of, like native traditions, right? You always have like that elder, right? They're not
Right.
they're not the chief, right? But they have
Right.
this kind of like royal status within the
Yeah.
tribe still, and that's
Yes.
kind of how they are, right? They
Right.
have this wisdom to be able to give to the regular people, and
Yes.
that's why they're treated kind of like royalty
Yeah.
or this king-like
Yeah.
status, right?
Because they care for the soul of the people.
Right.
Right? The tribe as a whole, the culture as a whole, right? And they have the knowledge to bring with it to bring sustenance to that soul. Well, I want to go back to what you were saying about how when it came to the Babylonians, and then they began the easing, you said, with that trickery, right? You
Mhm.
were saying with the wisdom. So now I'm changing it, right?
Mhm.
Uh, uh, and then that's where they come in with the term sorcery,
Mhm.
right?
Yep,
It
and
was a
exactly.
trick. Yeah,
Yep,
that's how
and
that came to
exactly
be.
what you're saying, uh, just how we are saying with the words, that's when it starts broadening up when it goes to Magoi, just like you said, that's when the sorcery, I have it on the side here. The sorcery, divination, all the alchemy, all the other occult things that started getting tied to it, right?
Yeah, and then a lot
Soothsaying.
of when we look and we talk about the alchemy things again, going back to what we said, people, and there's something to be said from the second geometrical perspective, and we still do it today when we talk
Mhm.
about the And think about way back then, the dividing of minerals, right? The discovering of minerals, right?
Mhm,
Seeking, and again, we're still trying to do it today with AI, that to build new minerals and discover new, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Out of that's alchemy,
mhm.
right?
And, no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And I was gonna say, but now with anything, again, there's that good aspect of discovery and wondering, and then there's the want to possess and take power over, if that
Mm,
make any sense.
mhm. Excuse me. And I say the same thing all the time. Mainly referring back to Christianity because a lot of times, they'll people will point directly to the Catholic Church, and that's not to excuse them, but to say, yeah, we have the same problem within our own establishments that we need to take care of, right?
Eh,
Instead of pointing the other finger, let's look at our own places and get them correct before we, start pointing the finger.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of places to look too. Doesn't matter which, denomination or whatever you want to
Yeah,
put it on.
yeah.
The
Like you
Catholics,
said,
the
the
Latter
bigger
Day
it gets,
Saints,
yeah, the
the
bigger it
Jehovah's
gets, the bigger the
Witnesses,
problems.
right, the
Well,
Mormons, all of them. Indians, right? But
but
you
so
point fingers. Yeah, I'm just saying though, that's the
yeah,
way the world is.
yeah.
So, you're not I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Beyond reproach. You're not beyond reproach, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
especially when you are thine accuser.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I wanna, kinda go back a little bit. You made a point going to the sacred geometry aspect, right?
Right?
And, funny enough, Pliny the Elder attributes Pythagoras to being a
Oh,
Zoroastrian Magi, and not just him, but Plato also and
oh
others
yeah.
within, philosophy,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
being of the same wisdom tradition, right?
Yes, all of the astronomers, all of the forward thinkers who
Mhm,
would think about and ponder about space and would look at the shape and think about design, also looking not only outwardly but inwardly, right?
mhm,
Starting to introduce, that's where we got the microscope and these type of things, the desire to look in, find out it's just as vast. But
mhm,
yeah, so it's the same thing. They're still
and
wise men, they're still considered magi in multiple circles, especially then.
I don't
Even
wanna
now,
do.
though, hold on, let me go back.
No,
Even
go ahead.
now, because as a
Yep.
sacred geometrician myself, there's a difference between sacred geometry and geometry.
Mhm,
Meaning, okay, you can still do the numbers and the figures and figure out this space, but if you're not about the wonderment of the design of it all,
mhm,
right, the source of it all,
mhm,
that's the divide right there between the
mhm,
content, because one, which is still physical, even though we're talking about space, numbers, and so on. And then the soul geometry is spiritual.
mhm,
It's seeking the spiritual elegance of creation.
mhm. And, again, we talk about it all the time, me and you, where, all the time back then, the spiritual and the education, right, were always together. And
Right.
anymore today, we try to separate them as if they're different
Yeah.
when, you know, they're really not.
They're really
Again,
not.
how you're
And
saying
that's the thing. I know.
when you're looking at sacred geometry, it's kind of just bringing that back to that, looking at the same shape somebody else might, but again, but with a spiritual context back into it, right?
Right. Exactly.
One
And
could
then once you
argue
get
the
to do that,
original, right? I said one could argue the original.
I
Yeah.
said one could. Yes. Right. So, I mean, that's why I like that I agree with you that we agree on the point about science and spirituality and science and religion, that there is not a divide,
Mhm,
right? That they are one, they are mixed. Anywhere there may seem to be a divide is because someone has made it so, right? To me, wherever there seems to be a divide, that says there's more need for deeper questioning. There
mhm,
needs to be a deeper search. There's a deeper truth to be had.
mhm.
That's the quest. That's what and that's what it is, and that's what we find.
And like you said, when you look at most pioneers are, have their spirituality within it. Even if you look to Jack Parsons with NASA, right? He's the one who built the rockets to get the rocket ships up, right?
Right.
But his spirituality was a little dark, but, point being, again, most pioneers are have it super close to where it's not separated. They see both together and not as a divide, right?
Right. Exactly. They're meshing, as it were.
Right, right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And then, going back to Zoroastrianism, like we were saying, once, Greek culture has a misunderstanding and again start misattributing things like how we were saying with astrology.
Right.
They started looking at things with his name and trying going super in and breaking down Zoroaster as the living flux star, meaning that he died by living in a star that just blew up or whatever and he became a star. But
Right.
again, you kind of see the reaching there.
Right.
Again, that would take a
And
lot more for a historical context, but if you want to add something into there.
well, it's still more of the same, and we'll see through all various forms of scripture.
Mhm.
The hero tale, right, the rising and then the dying and the rising into the heavens, right?
Mhm.
It's right. So that's a theme. It's told differently, but
Mhm.
again, like we talked about the book of Job coming from that time in the era. That's why it says the oldest book in the Bible. Or we talk about other concepts like the concept of Herod and the Hebrew people came from Zoroastrianism roots from the
Mhm.
time of being in Persia,
Mhm.
right? And you can look at the different stories. We'll talk about Esther, and
Mhm.
um, and see where various concepts have went from one culture into the next. How it
Mhm.
came into the Hebrew culture.
Mhm. And that's kind of another point that I was going to add to.
Israeli culture.
That's where you see in some translations they'll also have them down as the Chaldeans. But
Yeah,
mainly referring again back to the astrology and the astronomy, or those who practiced astrology and
right,
astronomy in Babylonian culture, right?
right. Yeah, because the Chaldeans were another group of the famed astrologers, the
Mhm.
stars, and here we go again with that magic, and or being called magic, you know. Um, how much of it was actual understanding, and then again, it's not only the knowledge that you attain, but what you're trying to do with the knowledge you attain, right?
Mhm.
And are you trying to thwart the knowledge, or for lack of a better term, pervert the knowledge? Well, I
Mhm.
say that means turning it against itself or to disprove, all those
Yeah.
type of deals.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the same thing, we're saying that same demonization when they're saying, Chaldeans are referring to somebody as a Chaldean, it wasn't, necessarily oh, they're just a Chaldean.
Right,
It was
right, right.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
did you have something to say?
No, no, I was just going along with what you were saying, and I was
Mhm.
finna saying too, according to what you say, as the Persian coming from the Zoroastrianism perspective of Magi,
Mhm.
uh, uh, wise kings, um, were different or against what the Babylonian terminology at the time had dwarfed into of
Mhm.
Magi, which was basically like imposters, right?
Mhm.
Not the real, yeah.
And kind of how you
Yeah,
see, like, the same thing with the whole story with Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, because none of them are able to answer it, and he has to get Daniel to be able to answer it, and showing
exactly.
well, I think Daniel says something to the effect of, no wise man or no, the wise man said it themselves. He said, "No king or whatever can interpret your dream for you. No one could do it. It's impossible," right?
Right, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
again, that's kinda showing more of the, what would you call it? Political stuff that's happening, with the writing, right? I don't wanna say propaganda, um, kinda just more so their view on it, again, where you see, like, with Egyptian culture, whenever they had a battle, if they lost a battle, they're not gonna put that lost battle in there more or less, right? They wanna portray
right.
themselves as best as possible,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah, it's any group in history, right? They don't
Yeah.
want to put, they don't want to take the L. Nobody want to take the L,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah. But
And,
then now, go ahead.
no, you're good.
Well, I was gonna say then it's up now to the modern terminology of magic.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Magic coming from magia, and again,
uh-huh,
that's the first with, when the, that's the Greek term for magic where we get today's magic, right, is magia.
right. Mhm.
And again, when that's the first connotations of when the sorcery was introduced. So you see that to the effects of today when we hear somebody practicing magic, right?
Yeah, they think it's always somehow sorcery so then the magician, the little kid magician or something, he's practicing, she's practicing sorcery.
Magia, yeah.
That's not necessarily sorcery.
No, that's just when it also started getting introduced when I was saying the other negative connotations like divination, soothsaying, sorcery, all the other terms that got associated into uh other terms associated with the magi, right? So
Right.
then magia was another term that got associated with the magi to just say more or less anybody who practiced these dark arts, right? What they listed as dark arts.
Right, I was saying now, wait a minute, these was the wise, the wisdom seekers. I was telling, but that
Yeah,
version of it, that's kind of where I was trying to get
right,
to too,
yeah,
right? That
yeah,
version of it, because I still believe there's still that true seeker, the original Magi, the
mhm,
king of the following and understanding and discerning of the stars.
mhm,
Yeah,
and that's again the
yeah, but
same reason for me why I say, like, again, just because you don't agree with somebody, don't to just not demonize them. First understand them, right? Because
mm,
if somebody in today's sense, "Oh, I practice magic," you might have, "Oh, you on Ouija boards, you doing, stuff
yeah,
like that," when they could be the furthest
uh,
thing from that, and you're just automatically listing them off as that, when
yeah,
really it's such a broad term or label,
yeah.
uh, that could mean a lot of things, you
Cause
know?
in a lot of things, right? Like I did man with the kids, grandkids. But and then one of my greatest trick is already math,
Mhm,
and they still don't know because they don't understand the math. Oh, how to do that? It was just math. There wasn't no dark art. It wasn't no right. It was an understanding, and
mhm,
that's what I'm saying again about uh intentions and um something that's given unto somebody or just thrown onto them. Like you said, they do all of the magi. Anyone practices the dark arts, right?
mhm,
Sometimes they want to throw everybody in a barrel and you're leaving some simple things out.
mhm,
You know what I
and
mean?
again, that kinda goes back to the same thing of when we were saying when it gets back introduced with Babylon, or when Babylonian culture takes over, and it starts get the Babylonian magi are more associated with uh fakers, right?
Right, right.
Pretenders, right? And
Mhm,
again, when you look at Babylonian culture, they have more of the talking to demons and spirits within the underworld and stuff like that, and incantations and things like that, again where you
mhm.
understand that that's why they're just misassociating and just, oh well, they're
Right.
just a magi even though
I
technically
think a
it's
lot of
really
that
different.
too comes always when culture is falling,
Hmm.
right? And if I think there's always like an increase in that. I'm like a gravel star that just
Hmm.
that's a better or maybe exposing a true will or whatever, right?
Well,
Bible said,
syncretism also, just the combining of the two a lot of times, losing the original intent, uh, uh by merging the two, right?
right,
So a lot of times that's where you see those things. Again, I mean, we've talked about it all the times with the different deities and stuff like that, where they're equivocated the same but have different stories or whatever. But unless you like follow and see most times through the syncretism, because I'm either getting merged or split off, one of the two, that either the
right,
one deity becomes three or either the three becomes one, right?
Right. Yeah. That too is the understanding of numbers. And that's often why stories have to be told with those things, because we're going back 3 and 1, the sacred
Mhm.
geometry and numbers and things again. So when it's told in the story of people, a person, or a given personage, a personal image, right?
Mhm.
Um, then our minds, people's minds can grasp them better,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. But it's my hope that, okay, we graduate from that original intent, and then we search deeper and then get to some deeper truths.
And so we've talked about Zoroastrian, but I'd like to break down a little bit more of the actual mechanics, right? Before the introduction of Babylonian culture and those things. You know, we touched on the wisdom, the asnas, the duality, the problem of evil and things like that. Again, to touch on more or less the dualistic, right? Zoroastrianism attributed as one of the first dualistic. Am I right?
Realistic or, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. It's coming into one, but still, that's one of the kind of hallmarks of coming from monotheism,
Hmm.
but in that pluralistic manner, what you're saying, yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
uh I think the difference is I think there's something called Zoroastrianism, and that's more or less when the dualism was introduced. So how you're saying before that was originally monotheistic, but then when the Zervanism came in, I could be wrong with my date, but I want to
Well,
say
even
it's
that, I want to say, still merging. Just like now, we said Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? The
hmm
Godhead bodily, right?
hmm
3 in 1.
hmm
Like Paul, not Paul. It was Paul. Out on Mars Hill talking about that, the 3 in 1 nature of God, but doing that in a way because they were believing through God. He was showing how the giving them an understanding of 3 in 1 God person that they could attribute from their religious walks, right?
hmm
They had a similar type of theology.
hmm and so how you're saying again the same thing, like a little bit later on. That's where you kind of see a lot of the correlations with the underworld, right? With Hebrew culture and Babylonian culture and Persian, because once the dualism then starts coming in, it's the good versus the bad, right? And it's that
Oh yeah, that's a
eternal
good point.
power struggle, right?
Yeah, because in Zoroastrianism, and that's where I might have said this earlier or not. Yeah, that the Jewish people would get started getting the concept of hell. They didn't have that teaching prior to then, right? When they talk
Mhm.
about, I want to say it's the Yakuza or something. It's like the bridge you walk to after life into eternity,
Mhm.
right? And the thing that faces you. And yeah, I have to research that further, but yes,
I would say, yeah, that's a whole episode in itself again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have to do that.
But again, that's just what's so good about, these conversations. There's just so much we can always go to here and there. Um, is there anything you wanted to add to uh Zoroastrianism and some of the mechanics with how they actually operate and how they view spirituality?
Well, again, I'll take my reference back to Job,
Hmm.
and because again, it's like a story of told. Even the people, the priests or whatever from the temple, right? They'll come in and sin him, die, and they'll curse God and all of these things because surely you've done something wrong in order for all these things to be happening to you.
Hmm.
But not understanding that he's being tested because
Hmm.
he's faithful.
Hmm.
Right now, this is an old biblical story. Still go back into hey, every time you look at the Bible, all the other stories that come after that. It always speaks of a time of testing, right, and a time of triumph by withstanding the test.
Hmm.
And so that Zoroastrianism had a lot of um, tales, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying a lot of stories, right? They're told,
Hmm.
and that is one of, if not the most famous story. But a lot of people probably don't attribute it to that. They don't know that. They don't have to understand it. They don't know that this is Zoroastrianism.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And, again, that's a perfect example in Job where you see Satan, he's Satan meaning accuser, we just went over
yeah,
this, this past Sunday. Uh, the accuser was in the heavens, going against and wasn't this, struggle against God, right? And then you
right.
see that difference, and again, the conflation of Lucifer with Satan, right?
Yeah, I
Um
was just gonna ask you, is that literal? Is that metaphorical? Because I asked one of
Well,
the questions. It says, "Well, where you been?" "Oh, I've been walking around back and forth across the world, doing
mhm,
what? Looking for someone uh, who might choose or who I could turn against you, right?" And he
mhm,
said, "Oh, have you considered my servant Job? Oh, yeah, he'll stay with you just because you know what I mean. You doing all this and that for him. He blessed. He got all this and that third, but you took that away from him. He wouldn't rock with you like that."
mhm,
I said, "Go ahead, give him a shot. Boom, take away the wives. Boom, take away the cattle. Boom, take away everything." Then they still wouldn't give it up, right? Still believe it. Like, okay, man, this is what had going on. I don't understand what's going on. And then it's like, yo, just die, man. What you doing? Get the priest over here. All to do is get him. Come on, man. Come on,
mhm,
just give it up. You've done all the evil. Still wouldn't do it, right? Force him to die. But because God is good, God is faithful. God restored him for his faithfulness tenfold.
mhm.
So he might have lost twofold, but he got back tenfold, and that's a plus eightfold. Eight being the number of change, right? A new day, it's a new day, it's a new year, it's a new life, right?
Mhm.
Now, man, yo, let's start and the going back and forth. Oh, I'm sorry, I got off track a little bit with that part, right? But then, why is the devil back in heaven? He chilling in heaven? The devil chilling in heaven? You know what I mean? They been like, "Oh God, yo, what's up, man? I'm John. I've been around the world. I've been around the block. You know, I'm back now. We back. Yeah, back for what? Up to no good, right?
Mhm.
So what about that? How does that square? If the
Well,
devil
again
come back up, is that heaven?
when we start, looking at other religions, and again, that's again, in my opinion, why I don't like most Christians would be like, "Oh, why are you looking at, the Vedas, this, and that, and these other books and these other texts?" Again, when you can still gain knowledge from it, again,
Mm,
I'd rather know what I'm saying than be ignorant to
mm,
what I'm saying, right?
right.
So, well, what you were describing, right, is kind of that more Zoroastrian describes it as Ahriman, right? The Ermonic demonic, quote unquote, right? And that's again where you kind of get that more association, right? Is
Hmm.
and again, that's not until later when the dualism then comes in where it's describing that eternal power struggle between good and bad, right? Is then when Ehrman's then more so described and talked about.
Yep. Good always win in the end,
Hmm.
right? Yeah. Love over hate, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes going through that, it's just like the story told, and how it's a story of old, it's being retold, even being retold today in our days of time, right?
Hmm.
We have to understand where our mind at,
Hmm.
right? Are we gonna give in to the hate, right? Are we gonna lean into the love?
Hmm.
None of us are perfect. We're gonna have good days and bad days, right? We're gonna want to hate sometimes, right? But that's the time for us to love stronger, to love
Hmm.
harder, right?
Yep.
To love more, right?
Yep.
And then we can understand it ain't even about trying to convince all the haters, those who want to hate, hey, I gotta hate this one. I gotta, they got hate on their plate,
Hmm.
right? They can be them, and then they're gonna get their just rewards for the fruit in which they desire and consume.
Hmm.
So too will it be with us, right? If we desire and consume good fruit, right? The fruit of knowledge, right? It was
Hmm.
given to us to seek, to know, right? To explore,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
then it's about what we do with that knowledge, right? And
Yep.
then if you have a belief, like you said, man, you should, if you believe in something and you're going out and you're reading other things so that you may have a breadth of knowledge,
Hmm.
if that other thing uh should, if what you believe in is true, strengthen your beliefs,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Yep.
It may not even be a matter of that, it may enhance your beliefs,
Yep.
So it means add
Absolutely.
on to what you believe and give it more leg, more
Yep.
flowers.
Yep. And
Right?
that's
We can't
exactly how I
confine
feel.
ourselves.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's what I tell him too. I'm like, I completely see it like you're saying from the other way because it's only strengthened my opinions that much more because I've tested them, I've battled them, I've put them up against the mirror, quote unquote, right?
that's right.
But
Baptized in the fire.
I think this was another great episode.
Yeah, me too,
Learned a
man.
lot today, went over a lot today, as
Yes,
always. As we said, got a couple more ideas for some more videos in the future. So again, guys, if whichever one you guys want us to talk about first, let us know. Drop them down in the comments, and we'll do that first. Thanks to everybody for coming and joining us again today. Hope you like, share, and subscribe. Have a good day.
that's right. Love, truth, and justice. Peace.
Amen.